Welcome, folks. Today we're taking you on a whirlwind tour of the top 30 best places to visit in Scotland. Think of it like a really fast coach trip with me, your driver, cracking terribly inappropriate jokes along the way. From ancient castles perched on rugged cliffs to mysterious lochs hiding legendary creatures, and probably some questionable karaoke bars, Scotland's got it all. And believe me, you'll want to see it all. So grab your kilts, pack your sense of humor, and let's get this Highland fling started. Oh, and a wee warning before we set off. If anyone asks you to try haggis and tells you it's vegetarian, they're having you on. Just trust me on that one. Right, on with the show. First up, we're off to Edinburgh Castle, a proper fairy tale fortress perched high above the city. This grand old dame has seen it all. Wars, sieges, probably even a few stag parties gone wrong. And the views? Don't even get me started on the views. They're so spectacular you'll want to burst into a chorus of Scotland the Brave, or maybe that's just the effect of the whiskey. Inside, you'll find enough history to make your head spin, from the honors of Scotland, the crown jewels, darling, to the Stone of Destiny. Legend has it this lump of rock was used to crown Scottish kings. Personally, I think they could have spruced it up a bit, maybe added some sequins or a nice velvet cushion. But hey, who am I to judge? Next, we're off to Loch Ness, home to the world's most elusive celebrity, Nessie. Yes, that's right, the Loch Ness Monster. Now, some say she's just a myth, a figment of our collective imagination. But I say, where there's a souvenir shop selling Nessie plush toys, there's got to be some truth to it, right? Even if Nessie doesn't make an appearance, the scenery alone is worth the trip. Think deep, mysterious waters surrounded by rolling hills. It's enough to make you want to grab a pair of binoculars and start your own monster hunt. Just watch out you don't trip over any tourists trying to get the perfect selfie with a blurry image of a log they swear is Nessie. It happens more often than you'd think. Right, buckle up lads and lasses because we're off to the Isle of Skye, a place so beautiful it could make a grown Scotsman weep into his whiskey. And trust me, they've got plenty of that. Skye is a hiker's paradise with more peaks and valleys than you can shake a stick at. Just try not to get lost, alright? Legend has it there are more sheep than people on Skye, and they're not giving directions. But it's not all about the great outdoors, oh no. Skye's got charming villages, cozy pubs, and enough local lore to make your hair stand on end. You might even hear a tale or two about fairies. And no, I'm not talking about those wee fellas from the Tinkerbell movie. So pack your hiking boots, your waterproofs, and maybe a wee dram of courage because the Isle of Skye is an adventure waiting to happen. Just try not to talk to any strange men selling magic beans, eh? Next up, we're off to Glasgow, Scotland's largest city, and a place where the locals are as friendly as they are funny. They also love a good night out, so get ready to party. Glasgow's got it all: stunning architecture, world-class museums, and enough music venues to satisfy even the pickiest of hipsters. And if you're feeling peckish, you're in luck. Forget your fancy Michelin stars, Glasgow is the home of the deep-fried Mars bar. Now, I know what you're thinking. Graham, deep-fried Mars bar? Really? But trust me, it's a Glasgow institution. Though maybe best not to tell your doctor I recommended it. So if you're looking for a city with a heart of gold and a sense of humor to match, Glasgow's the place to be. Just remember to pack your dancing shoes and an iron stomach. Right then, history buffs, this one's for you. We're off to Stirling Castle, a place so steeped in history you'll practically trip over a king or two. And knowing how clumsy some of those royals were, that's entirely possible. Stirling Castle has seen it all. Battles, betrayals, and more than a few banquets. This is where Mary Queen of Scots had a bit of a rough time, bless her heart. And let's not forget William Wallace, the original Braveheart. Though I'm not sure Hollywood got the kilt situation quite right. But Stirling's not just about the past, darling. It's got stunning views, beautiful gardens, and enough ghost stories to keep you up all night. Though that might just be the haggis talking. So grab your crown, polish your sword, and get ready to step back in time at Stirling Castle. And if you see any ghosts, tell them Graham says hiya. Right then, buckle up because we're off to Edinburgh, darlings. We're strutting down the Royal Mile, a street so grand they named it after themselves. It's just a wee stroll from Edinburgh Castle to Holyrood Palace. This street is jam-packed with history, shops, and pubs. You'll practically trip over ghosts here. The Royal Mile is an experience you won't soon forget. Alright, adventurers, are you ready to conquer a giant? We're talking about Ben Nevis, the highest peak in all of Britain. Well, a very, very steep and potentially treacherous walk in a very, very large park. But hey, the views from the top are meant to be absolutely gobsmacking. There's always the option of admiring Ben Nevis from the comfort of a cozy pub. Ben Nevis has something for everyone. Hold on to your hats, nature lovers, because we're off to the Cairngorms National Park. Towering mountains, sparkling lochs, ancient forests, and abundant wildlife. Hiking, biking, skiing, you name it. Keep your eyes peeled for golden eagles. The Cairngorms is also home to charming villages, distilleries producing the finest whiskey, because the Cairngorms will take your breath away. Now, if you're looking for a castle that screams Scotland, at the top of its turrets, Eileen Donan is your laddie. Perched on a tiny island where 3 lochs meet, it's like someone saw this view and thought, you know what this needs? A castle. And not just any castle, darling, a castle fit for a postcard. You've got the rugged mountains, shimmering water, and then bam! This fairy tale castle just pops up. Honestly, you half expect Mel Gibson to come charging out in a kilt. Just try not to lose your head over the view, alright? Right, let's swap our hiking boots for something a bit more, shall we say, regal? Welcome to Holyrood Palace, the official residence of Her Majesty in Scotland. Isn't Buckingham Palace enough for one queen? Well, a girl's gotta have options. This isn't just any old holiday home. This grand old dame has seen centuries of history and scandal. Remember Mary, Queen of Scots? Her life was more dramatic than EastEnders. You can feel the history oozing out of the walls. You don't need to be a duchess to appreciate the splendor of this place. Next up, we're off to St. Andrews, a charming little town on the east coast. Famous for golf and more golf. This is the home of golf, darlings. But St. Andrews has more to offer than just birdies and bogeys. Stunning beaches, a historic university, and plenty of pubs and restaurants soak up the atmosphere of this charming seaside town. Glencoe, darlings, Glencoe. It's enough to make a poet out of anyone. This valley has seen it all, from volcanic eruptions to a spot of bother with the clans in the 17th century. Yes, the Glencoe massacre is a dark mark, but don't let that put you off. The scenery is breathtakingly beautiful. Keep an eye out for the local wildlife, red deer, golden eagles, and the infamous Highland midge. Prepare to be wowed by the majesty of Glencoe. Right, let's hop over to the Orkney Islands, shall we? We're talking Neolithic villages older than the pyramids, folks. Skara Brae is the star of the show, a well-preserved Stone Age settlement. These islands boast dramatic cliffs, rolling green hills, and spectacular bird life. Puffins, gannets, terns, you name it, they've got it. And if you're a fan of seafood, well, you're in for a real treat. Just, maybe pack a jumper. It can get a bit breezy up there. Now let's talk about something a bit more modern, shall we? Don't worry, I haven't lost the plot entirely. I'm talking about the Kelpies, those magnificent horsehead sculptures. Designed by Andy Scott, they are a truly impressive sight. Standing at 30 meters tall, they make for a cracking good selfie backdrop, located in Falkirk, part of a larger regeneration project. The Kelpies, a testament to Scottish artistry and engineering. Next up on our whirlwind tour of Bonnie Scotland is a sight that'll leave you scratching your head and saying, how did they do that? It's the Falkirk Wheel Lovelies, a rotating boat lift that's basically a giant watery Ferris wheel for canal boats. Imagine this, 2 canals separated by a pesky 35 meters of elevation. Now, most sensible engineers would have built some boring old locks. Not in Scotland, darling. They went full-on Willy Wonka and created this masterpiece of engineering. The wheel gently lifts boats up and down, connecting the Forth and Clyde Canal with the Union Canal. It's a sight to behold and a testament to Scottish ingenuity. And the best part? You can actually take a ride on it. Yes, hop aboard a boat and experience this marvel of modern engineering for yourself. Just try not to spill your urn brew, darling. Wouldn't want to upset the balance of this delicate operation. Now, my darlings, we're off to a place that's so achingly beautiful it'll make your heart sing. It's the Scottish Highlands, a land of rugged mountains, shimmering lochs, and more shades of green than a leprechaun's wallet. Picture this: rolling hills cloaked in purple heather, ancient castles perched precariously on cliffs, and valleys carved by glaciers centuries ago. It's like stepping into a fairy tale, only with better whiskey. The Highlands are a haven for hikers, bikers, and anyone who loves the great outdoors. You can climb a Munro, that's a mountain over 3,000 feet for those of you who haven't brushed up on your Scottish geography, kayak across a loch, or just breathe in that fresh Highland air. Just watch out for the midges, those tiny biting beasties that are the only downside to this glorious part of the world. A wee bit of bug spray should sort that out though. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're off on a wee adventure to the Isle of Mull, a gem of an island nestled off the west coast of Scotland. It's a place where time seems to move a little slower, and the wildlife roams free. Mull is a nature lover's paradise with soaring cliffs, white sand beaches, and more seabirds than you can shake a stick at. Keep an eye out for puffins, those adorable little birds with the colorful beaks. And speaking of wildlife, you might even spot some larger residents like otters frolicking in the waves or red deer stags locking horns. Just remember, folks, admire them from a distance. We wouldn't want to interrupt their afternoon tea, now would we? But Mull isn't just about nature. Oh no, darling, it's also home to the colorful town of Tobermory, with its brightly painted houses and charming harbor. It's like something out of a storybook, and the perfect place to enjoy a wee dram of whiskey after a day exploring the island. And now for something completely different, darling. We're off to the Scottish borders, a place that's just lousy with history, literally dripping with it. And abbeys, don't forget the abbeys. You see, back in the day, the borders were the Wild West of Great Britain. English and Scottish monarchs were always having a right royal barney over who owned the land. It was like a particularly violent episode of location, 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 only with more swords. Speaking of abbeys, the borders are practically littered with them. Jedburgh Abbey, Melrose Abbey, Dryburgh Abbey, they're all here just begging to be explored. Although I'd wear sensible shoes if I were you. Cobblestones and stilettos don't mix, darling, trust me. And when you're done with all that history, you can always just enjoy the scenery. Rolling hills, picturesque villages, more sheep than you can shake a stick at. It's enough to make you want to pack up and move in, isn't it? Just imagine you, me, and a couple of sheepdogs. We could call it the Graham and Enna Show. Catchy, right? Next, we're off to the Hebrides, a chain of islands off the coast of Scotland that are as rugged and wild as a ginger-haired Scotsman after a particularly strong dram of whiskey. Now, the Hebrides are divided into two groups, the Inner Hebrides and the Outer Hebrides. It's all very geographical, darling. Just think of it like this: the Inner Hebrides are closer to the mainland, and the Outer Hebrides, well, let's just say they're about as far away as you can get without needing a passport. The scenery here is absolutely breathtaking. Think dramatic cliffs, windswept beaches, and crystal clear waters that will leave you speechless. Well, almost speechless. I mean, you'll still be able to say, wow, or goodness me, that's a lot of water. And speaking of water, the Hebrides are also home to some of the best whiskey distilleries in the world. So, if you fancy a wee dram, or two or three, you've come to the right place. Just try not to fall asleep on the ferry back to the mainland. Right then, put on your hiking boots and grab your binoculars because we're off to the Trossachs National Park, a place so beautiful it could bring a tear to a glass eye. We're talking shimmering lochs, towering mountains, and forests so thick and mysterious you wouldn't be surprised to stumble across a unicorn or two. And if all that natural beauty isn't enough to float your boat, the Trossachs are also home to some rather charming villages, cozy pubs with roaring fireplaces, and friendly locals who'll be happy to tell you all about the legend of Rob Roy. Right, buckle up because we're off to the Shetland Islands, folks. These islands are so far north, they practically have their own postcode. They're rugged, they're wild, and they're home to more sheep than you can shake a stick at. Not that I'd recommend doing that, mind you, unless you fancy a good chasing. And speaking of sheep, you can't talk about Shetland without mentioning those adorable Shetland ponies. They're like miniature horses, with flowing manes and a mischievous glint in their eye. You'll want to take one home, but trust me, they're harder to house train than a tipsy dachshund. But Shetland isn't just about cute animals and questionable sheep-related activities. It's also steeped in history, with Viking roots and traditions that have survived for centuries. Oh, and the knitwear. Let's not forget the iconic Fair Isle jumpers. They're so warm and cozy, you'll be wishing for a blizzard just to wear one. Now let's talk about bridges, darlings, but not just any bridge. I'm talking about the Forth Bridge, a masterpiece of engineering. This bridge is so big, so red, so undeniably Scottish. Built over 130 years ago, this steel giant was a marvel of its time. You can actually walk across it, taking in the breathtaking views. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's an experience you won't forget. Hold on to your Santa hats because we're off to meet some reindeer. That's right, the Cairngorm Reindeer Center is the place to go if you want to get up close and personal with these magical creatures. And no, they don't fly, but they are rather charming. Nestled in the heart of the Cairngorms National Park, this center is home to a herd of reindeer who are living their best lives, munching on lichen and posing for photos. You can take a guided tour, learn all about these fascinating animals, and even feed them some reindeer snacks. Just try not to get on Rudolph's bad side, he's got a reputation. But the reindeer aren't the only attraction here. The Cairngorms themselves are a sight to behold. Think rolling hills, snow-capped mountains, and a sense of peace and tranquility that's harder to find than a sober Scotsman on Hogmanay. So grab your warmest coat, channel your inner elf, and get ready for a reindeer encounter you won't forget. Just watch out for flying antlers during mating season. You've been warned. Right, darlings. Tuck your trousers into your socks and grab your wellies. It's off to the Hermitage we go. Nestled in Perthshire, the Hermitage is a woodland walk that's more fabulous than a catwalk during Fashion Week. Imagine towering Douglas firs, their needles thicker than a drag queen's eyelashes, and the River Braun cascading over rocks like a celebrity having a wee meltdown. And the best part, it's absolutely free. So pop on your most outdoorsy outfit and get ready for a right royal ramble through the Hermitage. Next up, me darlings, we're off to the Isle of Skye. We're talking about the fairy pools, a place so magical it makes unicorns look like donkeys. Legend has it that fairies used to bathe in these pools, which explains why the water is so bloody freezing. Now, if you're brave enough to take the plunge yourself, the fairy pools are truly a sight to behold. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to take on the Highlands. Literally. Next up is the Old Man of Storr, a rock formation so iconic it makes Stonehenge look like a pile of pebbles. Seriously, this thing is massive. The hike is worth it for the view from the top. You can see for miles across the Isle of Skye with its rolling hills, dramatic coastlines, and sheep. Now listen, if you're looking for a truly enchanting experience, hop aboard the Jacobite steam train. This iconic railway journey will whisk you away through some of Scotland's most breathtaking landscapes. Imagine chugging along the picturesque West Highland line, soaking in the rugged beauty of the Scottish Highlands. That's right, it featured in those Harry Potter films as the Hogwarts Express. So, if you fancy yourself a bit of a wizard, this train ride is practically mandatory. The vintage carriages, the steam billowing from the engine, the stunning views, it's a feast for the senses. Picture this, you're gazing out the window, a cuppa in hand, as the train meanders through glens and past sparkling lochs. So if you're looking for a truly unforgettable adventure, a ride on the Jacobite steam train is an absolute must. Alright, petrolheads and adventure seekers, buckle up because we're about to embark on the ultimate Scottish road trip, the North Coast 500. This iconic route, stretching over 500 miles of Scotland's rugged north coast, is not for the faint of heart, but oh, the rewards. Imagine, darling, the wind in your hair, the open road ahead, and a playlist full of Scottish bangers. The North Coast 500 isn't just about putting the pedal to the metal. It's about savoring the journey, stopping off at charming villages, sampling the local delicacies, and soaking in the raw beauty of the Scottish Highlands. Picture yourself, perched atop a windswept cliff, gazing out at the crashing waves of the North Sea. It's enough to make you want to write a poem, or at least post a dramatic selfie. The real stars of this show are the landscapes, my dears. From the dramatic peaks of the Scottish Highlands to the sweeping beaches of the North Coast, every twist and turn of the North Coast 500 reveals a new vista that will take your breath away. You'll encounter ancient castles perched precariously on cliffs, hidden coves with crystal clear waters, and maybe even a Highland cow or two. Just don't get too close, they can be a bit moody. So if you're looking for an adventure that will stay with you long after you've returned the rental car, then the North Coast 500 is calling your name. Just remember, pack your sense of adventure, your camera, and maybe a spare tire. You know, just in case. You wouldn't want to be caught short in the middle of the Scottish Highlands with a flat tire and a mobile phone with no signal, would you? Now that's what I call a nightmare. Now, my friends, we're off on a journey to quench your thirst for knowledge and perhaps a wee dram or two. Scotland's Whiskey Trail. Oh, it's a magical place. Imagine rolling hills carpeted in green, the air thick with the scent of peat and barley. It's enough to make you want to burst into a chorus of Auld Lang Syne, but hold your horses, or should I say, hold your Highlands. We've got distilleries to visit, each with their own unique character and, dare I say, secrets to unlock. You'll learn the difference between a single malt and a blend, and trust me, after a few drams, you'll be an expert. But be warned, the Scots are a friendly bunch. They might just offer you another wee dram, and then another. And, well, you might not remember much of the tour after that. But hey, isn't that part of the fun? Just remember to pace yourself and drink responsibly. Or don't, it's your holiday. Just kidding. Be safe and enjoy the magic of the Scottish Whiskey Trail. From the intoxicating heights of the Whiskey Trail, we find ourselves at the Scottish Seabird Centre. Now, some of you might be thinking, birds? Really, Graham? But trust me on this one, this isn't your grandmother's birdwatching club, although they are most welcome too, of course. This place is fantastic. Imagine thousands of birds, from gannets diving into the sea with the grace of an Olympic diver, to puffins, those adorable little guys with the colorful beaks, waddling around like they own the place. It's a sight to behold, and that's not even mentioning the incredible views. You can see for miles across the Firth of Forth with its sparkling waters, and maybe even spot a seal or two basking in the sun. And if you're lucky, you might even catch a glimpse of a dolphin or a whale. Now, wouldn't that be something to write home about? So pack your binoculars, your sense of wonder, and maybe a waterproof jacket just in case the birds decide to target you. You're in for a real treat at the Scottish Seabird Centre. And there you have it, folks, the top 30 best places to visit in Scotland. Whether you're a history buff, nature lover, or just looking for a good time, Scotland has something for everyone. From the dramatic peaks of Ben Nevis to the enchanting fairy pools and the wee drams of the Whiskey Trail, Scotland is a feast for the senses. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more travel tips and adventures. Slain.